All right. So now we're going to look at the long run. So up ahead was the short run, and now we look at the long run. So remember, we need to remind ourselves of a couple of things. Well, one thing we need to remember is it's easy to enter this market, right? So what do you think is going to happen if there's economic profits? And remember, let's remind ourselves what economic profits are. Economic profits are such that the firm is making more than a normal profit because they're making more than their opportunity cost. So they invested a certain amount of money into their firm, and they have a certain amount of opportunity cost. And in this business, they're making more than that, right? So they're getting sort of excess profits in some sense, right? They're probably doing better than most other industries if they have economic profits. So it's at least better than perfect competition industries. And so it's going to attract. So when you have a profit, an econ profit greater than zero will attract new entrants. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. This is going to attract new entrants. And this is the same idea as we had with perfect competition, but there's a little difference in the way it's going to happen. In perfect competition, it was seen through the supply curve, but here we don't have a supply curve. We just have one firm and we have their market. So we don't have a supply curve with many firms in it. We just have one because remember, each of them is their differentiated product in their own market. So what's going to happen? So here's what's going to happen. So this is the demand curve number one and the marginal revenue curve that goes along with it. I may have drawn it a little off. And so what's going to tend to happen is that they're going to shift, okay? And it's going to tend to do two things at the same time. So we get this new entry, right? So we get new entry is attracted by the positive profit, and that will have two things. That will decrease demand, and it will also make the demand more elastic. Your textbook focuses mainly on the first one, but both of these are something we think that people think will happen. Okay, so this decreases demand. So demand, well, that's this. It's decreasing demand, and then it's also getting flatter, which we can say at any given point. That means that it's more elastic at that same point. Okay, and then our marginal revenue changes accordingly. Marginal revenue remember, is derived from the demand, so it's just going to change accordingly. I'm just drawing it here for that purpose. Okay, so this tends to have. So we got profit greater than zero, gets new entrants, and the new entrants cause your demand to go down, and they also cause your demand to become more elastic. Okay, so like you can picture the idea. You have a restaurant selling a certain kind of food, and maybe you're the first restaurant to bring this food to Denver, and you have a line out the door and down the street because it's something really hot and hip right now. And then other people see this and they're like, whoa, I need to get into that business. And so other people enter this business and they start selling similar types of food to you and they start competing with you. And then over time, they're going to erode your position in this market. And the way it's going to be seen, because they're substitutes for you, they're going to erode your position by decreasing the demand for your product and also by making demand for your product more elastic. Okay, and so this is how it's going to be seen. Now let's go ahead and take that idea and put it back into our framework for finding the best price and quantity. So we can see what happens to the typical firm in the long run. Okay, so let me go ahead and draw everything, and then I'll start explaining. Okay, so we're going to put the two side by side, so not to have too much mess in our graph. I will attempt to draw the two the same. I don't know if I'll manage to, but I will attempt to. So this is our average total cost. Okay, for our our two time periods, same firm. So they should be basically the same because it's the same firm. And our marginal cost. Okay, so our marginal cost. Okay, so these are still short run costs, but we're looking at what's going to happen to this market in general in the long run. Okay, so let's suppose our market was here in this situation. So we were here, here's the demand, right? And then here is marginal revenue. Okay, that's our situation. And so then we can find our quantity is here, Q star, and our price, remember, go up to the demand curve, is here, P star, and our profit is here. Okay, so I'll join this fast because we've done this already. Okay, so we're in this situation. So right here we have profit greater than 0. And so then this attracts new entrants. So new firms come in this market. So if we're a clothes company, then there's going to be new firms producing clothes that are similar to ours. And if we're a restaurant, then we're going to have more and more firms either open similar types of restaurants or just open restaurants that tend to compete in for the same customer base. And then, so what's going to happen is your demand is going to start shifting, right? Demand is going to start shifting, and it's going to, as long as there's positive profit, people still want to enter. So what's going to end up happening is demand will tend to shift until at your maximum, your best you can do, you're just exactly equal to marginal, average cost. Okay, so here we're doing the best we can do. This is our Q star, and this is our P star. Okay, and now there's no profit. Okay, so we get this decrease in demand and more elastic demand until P star, sorry about my messy writing, P star equals to average total cost. And now our econ profit. So this is what happens. Let me just leave it there for a second while I write a couple more things, and then we'll stop and go to the next video. Okay, so this is what's going on. So in the long run, just to summarize, in the long run, the monopolistically competitive firms are pushed towards zero profit. And the one thing to notice, though, is the firms are not going to just take this lying down. They're going to resist. So in the case of perfect competition, there's nothing they can do, really. Only thing a firm can do is keep their costs low, because they're producing the same product as everybody else, and they can't do much else except for just try to keep their costs low as possible. But here, the firm has more tools to work with. So they're going to try to stop this from happening. So they're going to try to stop this from happening. They're going to try to keep their demand high enough that they can get a positive economic profit. So what do they do? So what do they do? How do they stop this from happening? Okay, so I'm going to move on so you won't be able to see the graphs anymore. How do they stop this from happening? So one way to stop this from happening is lower their costs. Okay, so they can try to keep their costs low, or at least keep them low. Okay, so that's the same as perfect competition. You just keep your costs low. You got to always keep an eye on costs. But the second one, and more important in this market, is differentiate their product. Okay, so this gives them a strong incentive to keep changing and improving their product. Okay, and so we'll come back into the next video and talk a little bit more about this differentiation.